Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is my Dell Precision 690 workstation from 2007, and in previous videos we've looked at it first as a Windows XP gaming rig and then with a few upgrades as a Windows Vista performance workhorse. In the latter video we turned the CPU and RAM performance up to 11 by installing dual quad-core Xeon processors and 32GB of ECC RAM. And although the result was a machine that performed very well in some tasks, it didn't really equate to any improvement in gaming performance. What's more, because Steam doesn't work on Windows Vista anymore, I was somewhat limited in terms of what games I could actually run. So in this video we're going to upgrade this machine to Windows 10, have a play around with some games, run some benchmarks, and then talk about the results. Enjoy! So I'm not going to bother taking you through the installation of Windows 10 because it's pretty uninteresting to be honest, but with it installed I'm able to install drivers for all of the equipment in the build straight from Windows Update, except for the PCI-X network card which unfortunately has no driver support for Windows 10. Thankfully the onboard NIC still works though, and with this thing connected up to my network I'm able to download a whole bunch of different games from the Steam library. I'm interested in anything that requires DirectX 10 or lower, which is a surprising number of games actually, rolling all the way up to around 2014, which, as a reminder, is 7 years after this PC was manufactured. I'm not going to run any of these games with direct screen capture enabled, as I want to give that 8800 GTX the best possible opportunity to shine. So we're just running MSI Afterburner to record performance metrics, and I'm filming the screen directly with the camera. Starting with some older games at the same time period as this card, Portal 2 still looks great on the higher settings and returns frame rates in the 3 figures range with an overall average of 126. This isn't really surprising as the source engine was really well established at this point and makes the best possible use of GPU's features from this time period. It should come as no surprise that this is the smoothest running game we'll look at today, but it was still released 4 years after this card in 2011. It's pretty awesome really. Next we'll look at Rage, another release from 2011 but with a much newer engine, and it shows. Rage looked great upon release but did receive a lot of criticism for poor compatibility on PCs when it first came out. The beauty of using the Steam version though is that we have all of the patches that were eventually released bundled in, and as a result we get a fairly playable result with the high-res surface textures turned on, returning around 42 FPS overall. Fallout New Vegas runs pretty well overall. In the New Vegas Wasteland we get close to the capped 60 frames per second on high settings, but it does seem to sporadically drop down quite significantly at times, perhaps when new assets are loaded or when Eddie is asserting his will out of view. Overall though, we have an average frame rate of 53.3. Not bad at all. Next we'll look at the 2010 reboot of Medal of Honor. This ran extremely well on high settings, returning an average 56 frames per second through this first level playthrough. Of all the games I tried, this one was the most solid in terms of frame rate, with the 1% score being 35.5. Hey, don't laugh, one of the games in this video scored 2.2 FPS for its 1% score. 35.5 is pretty awesome on this card at least. Kicking up a gear now, let's look at BioShock Infinite from 2013. This game still looks absolutely stunning, and even on this aging titan of a GPU, it still plays really well. If I ran the game on medium settings then I could easily clock frame rates as high as 50 frames per second. But even on high settings, it's still clocked in a respectable 38.3 on average, only significantly dropping during firefights, which admittedly is right when you don't want your frames to drop too low. Yeah, maybe best stick to medium on this one. Also from 2013 we have the reboot of Tomb Raider, which I was completely amazed ran this well if I'm honest. When this game came out I had an MSI laptop with a GeForce 650M GPU, and that really struggled to play this game. But with the GeForce 8800 GTX, which I remind you came out in 2007, this game looks fantastic using the normal preset on the launch menu, returning a respectable 41.6 frames per second, and even pushing towards the capped 60 frames per second limit in some areas. Lastly, I had to try it. Would GTA 5 run on this machine? And the answer is clearly yes, but only if I dropped pretty much everything as low as it would go and dropped the resolution to 1366 by 768. Even then, it's not quite the experience we were treated to even on the Xbox 360 and PS3, or maybe I'm just remembering it better than it was. In any case, it's not the most detailed playing experience out there, but it does play well and at a pretty consistent frame rate, returning an average of 30.7 frames per second. Now, obviously, that's not a great frame rate in 2022, but the fact that this fully patched and updated version of the game runs on a 15-year-old GPU at all is pretty impressive, and the crowning achievement of what I've been able to do with this build so far. Gaming is only half the picture though. I'm interested to see how this machine benchmarks, and because it's now running Windows 10, I have a fair chance of being able to compare it to some other machines that I own. We're going to look at two in particular. Firstly, my HP Omen notebook, which features an AMD Ryzen 4500U processor with integrated Radeon graphics. This is a 6-core processor clocked at 2.4 GHz, turboing up to 3.1 as needed. It also has 8GB of RAM and a 512GB NVMe SSD. This is a fairly mid-range notebook from 2021 and my daily driver for about the last year or so. Second, I want to include this HP ProDisk machine from around 2014. It includes an Intel Core i5 4570 CPU. This is a quad-core processor clocked at 3.8 GHz, and it also has 16GB of DDR3 RAM and a 250GB SATA SSD. In terms of benchmarks, I'm going to run Cinebench R23 to test single and multi-threaded CPU performance, Passmark performance test for general system performance, and 3DMark for graphics. Although we're only running the CloudGate benchmark, as that's the only one that all three devices support. And here's the results. In Cinebench R23, the Precision 690 edges out the HP ProDisk in multi-core performance by about 18%. This isn't surprising, seeing as the Precision has double the number of cores available compared to the ProDisk. Interestingly though, the single-core performance of the ProDisk is more than double that of the Precision 690, which is what 6 years of engineering advancement will do, I guess. Speaking of which, the HP Omen obviously wipes the floor with both of these older machines, with its 6 Zen 2 cores clocked at 2.3 GHz. Even in single-core performance it excels, tripling the performance of the aging cores in the Xeon 5355 processors. In Passmark, the Precision 690 is absolutely destroyed by both the ProDisk and the Omen laptop, with even the integrated graphics in the ProDisk edging out the score of the 8800 GTX by about 15%. That is absolutely insane to think that the performance of a flagship GPU can be surpassed by integrated graphics of a machine 6 years newer. And that's exactly what happened. And if we look at the Omen laptop, which also has integrated Radeon graphics, it scores over 400% higher than the 8800 in this benchmark at least. The overall score of the Precision 690 seems to be adversely affected by a terrible 2D graphics score, and the end result is that the ProDisk scores overall 10 times as much, and the Omen laptop over 20 times. Lastly, we'll look at the 3DMark CloudGate benchmark, and the Precision 690 trades blows with the ProDisk, only losing by about 5%. Both of these scores are dwarfed though by the score of the Omen laptop, which came in at 13,934, or more than the other two machines combined. Just for fun, I also ran this benchmark on my main gaming PC, and that came in at over 72,000. So yeah, none of these machines are that capable, for modern gaming at least. So those results are certainly pretty interesting. I didn't really think that this PC could trade blows with the much newer machines. but for it to be trading blows in many cases with a desktop class machine that's only 6 years newer, that I wasn't quite prepared for. I find it fascinating that so much power could be consolidated in a much smaller form factor in only a 6-year period. And when you extrapolate that onward to my trusty HP Omen, it just goes to show you how far technology has come, and how performance per watt has been increased significantly over the years. So what are my plans for this machine now? Well, it doesn't make much sense to retain it as a Windows 10 machine when it compares so poorly with any number of machines I own that have been made in the last 10 years. Neither does it make much sense to revert it to Windows Vista, where the lack of an available Steam client and limited compatibility with some XP titles makes it a very selective machine when it comes to which games it will run. The only real option I have then is to return it to its original Windows XP configuration and use it as a one-size-fits-all solution for Windows XP era games, ranging from the turn of the millennium all the way through to around 2012. That said, there's certainly no point in retaining 32GB of DDR2 ECC RAM, so I'll be dropping it back down to 4GB to lower the power draw and reduce the amount of heat generated. I'll be keeping in place the Creative X5 sound card and the media expansion bay for EEX-enabled games, and the card reader so that I can also use this as a bridge machine for writing CF cards for my older machines which use those as fixed storage. And there we have it. After many hours of fiddling and benchmarking, I've realised that sometimes hardware is best left alone. There's often no intrinsic benefit to maxing out a machine to the highest specs it permits, unless you're talking about equipment which is only a couple of generations old at best. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It was certainly interesting to have my perceptions challenged on this machine, and I'm glad I've taken the time to fully explore what it was capable of. It still would have been an amazing machine to use back when it was built, but if anything, this video goes to show that development never stops in IT, and the fact that a much smaller and cheaper laptop from 15 years later wipes the floor with it shows that. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if you've enjoyed it, and hit that subscribe button to see more content like this. And I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.